All right, I'm trying to put some information out there regarding some of the things. Now, this is a lease recommended by the National Apartment Association, and this is actually a lease for my building. Now, here's some of the things that I was discussing in a previous video about smoking. For our particular building, it's 25 feet away. If the previous field is not completed, smoking will be permitted at least 20 feet from the building in the apartment community, including the office. Now, again, this also defers to the 25 feet rule if that's not filled out, as well as on patios, balconies, and other limited common areas. Now, this is empty, as well as these blanks, but again, this clause up here is deferred to because 25 feet would definitely not include somebody's balcony or patio. We're going to look at some other stuff too. Again, this is an NAA recommended lease, so this is pretty much the national standard. It is, I think, 30 pages long and covers more protection for the complex than it does with the tenants, especially tenants who are victims. Now, this is dealing with VAWA protection of victims, assault. What is it? Victim. I forgot what the VAWA statute anyway, what it stands for, but it deals with any kind of victimization and assault. Now, the interesting thing about here is moving to another unit. In my complex, as much that has happened to us, I've never been afforded that opportunity. I was told, as a matter of fact, that if we wanted to move to a different complex, a different building, we would have to fill out a new lease. And if we were going to move to their building, their complex, they have two complexes that are next to each other, we would have to pay all new deposits. Again, we're going to this, dealing with the Violence Against Women Act. Now, I argue that it's not just for women. This is a very biased act. And I would argue that it's discriminatory, but it should apply to men too, particular stalking. We've never been afforded its protections because complex, all of them ignore our complaints. And the police refuse to take any kind of report from us. Now, if they do, regardless of us being on a limited income, we have to wait for them to finish the report, and then we have to pay anywhere from a $15 to a $20 fee. Or correction, $13 to $20 fee. Now, this is regarding the vehicles. They're not liable for anything. My argument is very different. My argument. This is people's property, not mine. Now, look at some other stuff in here. And of course, if I make a statement, I would argue it in court as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't make a statement. Now, here's more dealing with crime. Basically, it's very difficult to hold them to anything. And the very important thing is the very last statement right here. We're not responsible for obtaining criminal history checks on any resident, occupants, guests, or contractors in the apartment community. If you have any occupant or guest, if you are any, you must take any or written. If you, if you or any occupant or guest is affected by a crime, you must make a written report to our representative and to the appropriate local law enforcement agency. You must furnish us with the law enforcement agency's incident report number upon request. And actually, that's not legal. I don't believe it is. They can't force you to give them a copy of a police report. But again, that's the important thing. They're not responsible for obtaining a criminal history check on any resident, occupant, guest, or contractor. Now, this is relevant to us. Anybody who knows me knows that I believe in people can be repentant, people can change, people could just really, really screw up. Had a couple members in my family that they're not bad people. They just really, really screwed up. And they've changed their lives immediately. And actually, all of them became really, really productive members of society. The things they did were totally out of character. And some of them, they were influenced by some pretty bad people. But, so I believe that the power of change, especially, the power of God moving somebody to change. But that being said, people still have a right. Now, we've lived in a complex that will deny it. And I have, other than a statement, I don't know if I have the evidence anymore. We've been hacked so much. They've stolen so many hard drives and ruined laptops. But there was a convicted predator that lived in our complex and worked for maintenance when we lived there. And, he may have, I don't know the specifics. I know it wasn't a higher level sex crime. It was a lower level one. But if I hadn't background checked, I wouldn't know. And this guy, he made multiple repairs in our house. Multiple. And I didn't know this until after. But we were never told. He lived in here, and he worked for the complex. He may have been a changed person. But still, the tenant deserves the right to know. Their neighbors. And here's some more discussions of conduct.
In the criminal justice system, sexually based offenses are considered especially heinous. In New York City, the dedicated detectives who investigate these vicious felonies are members of an elite squad known as the
There's some important things to know. Interesting. So we'll leave it at that. It's just some food for thought. It may or may not be a similar lease that you may have, but for other people who are targeted or who just seem to, if you can't have, I'll tell you this, if you can't have your safe place, your castle, of course, American tradition is our castle is a home, especially if you're a veteran. Veterans are the only group that is put in United States Code that we deserve a home, and the VA will even help us get it. We are the only people mentioned in United States Code that have that right. The only people, I can't stress it enough, No other groups or classes or ethnicities or races or religions or anything or parties. Nobody has that right enshrined in the Constitution. Only veterans do, which are why there's ample loan programs out there, housing purchase programs, underwriting, all kinds of stuff is out there for us veterans. But housing vouchers, at this point, the only thing you can get close to a home is a trailer with vouchers. That's the closest you can get, unless you do a MISHTA, which is not really, it's no longer controlled by the VA. It's controlled by MISHTA, at least in the state of Michigan. But, the lease is a protection, and there's some leases that they don't protect the tenant rights at all. They protect the landlord more, which I'm not saying landlords don't deserve to be protected. There's some predatory tenants out there. But the fact of the matter is, rights should be balanced so that tenants such as myself and my family have protections when they're repeatedly abused, targeted, their rights derailed, they're made sick, and they're kept in poverty. All the while, the taxpayers are paying for them to get on their feet.